don't be too surprised if the toffs have got just all the goods on Russell Brand. Don't be surprised at all. Russell, I followed Russell and since he made friends with me on Facebook years ago, and that was before he was ever a political activist of any kind. He was an entertainer on Channel 4 on, what are they called? Big Brothers, Big Mate or something like that. A show that he hosted. He kind of walked around with a microphone dressed as a woman. Like a very gothic woman with eyeliner. But he was always like a little bit absurd. Which, to me, absurd can't be funny. That is my sense of humour, to be silly. And he was brilliantly silly. Brilliantly silly. He has a talent. He's a fantastic wordsmith and as good a writer. He's verbose. He's got a fast mind and a very good vocabulary. And he's mastered that art of pattering while he's thinking of something to say. And then another one where he gets that charge of an idea and it goes bang and he goes straight at it. Well, before anyone was talking of narcissists in the pop culture, in the internet space, before anyone was talking about narcissists, long before, he was one and self-avowed. He was. I've got the same kind of narcissism as him, as to where maybe you are the center of the universe. It's like, you're not, but what if you are? And if you are, what a terrible mess we're in, because you've utterly failed. And your lack of action is probably why the world's a bad place. So it's like enlightened comedy narcissism. Maybe I actually am the Messiah. Right. I have had that for many years. Right. And it's like an internal joke that like stops me from killing myself. Well, you can't, can you? Because you might just fuck it up for everyone else. What if it's your divine mission to fix this place? And when you finish at the end, if you don't tell the boss that you at least fucking tried and be able to show your workings, you failed. So it's a matter of, right, okay, so maybe I am the Messiah and I set off a little bit too low down in the fucking social hierarchy to be able to effectively pull it off. So it's a matter of, okay, I'll go back and show me workings that I tried, and maybe next time I'll get a better spin. Maybe next time they'll drop me in as the son of a duke or a prince. So it's like, that's like a skit, isn't it? It's a super narc skit. And it's like, that was Russell Brand's act once upon a time. He had a stand-up tour called Messiah Complex, and it was about him becoming someone extremely engaged in the internet and endlessly Googling himself. Am I the center of the universe? Asking that question. And it's like, that's, you at that level you're at, thinking wise, right? From there you can see profound things from there. So it's like Russell Brand, people to get to talk about him. I was listening to a chap the other day who was analysing Mr. Tate's and Iggy's. He's lost in the woods at the moment. A chap called Vitamin D, but he brought up a Russell Brand and showed something, and he says Russell Brand's a magician like Iggy, isn't he? Russell Brand's definitely a magician. Russell Brand's definitely a sorcerer, like a new age magician, a kind of a Jim Jones character even. And I'm like, well seen. You're well spotted. He is. He's like the best. And you know what? It's like he's had his comeuppance a few times for his terrible misdeeds. So it's like he's suffered enough failure to learn the lesson of other people, if you like. Although he could have also gone down the route of absolute selflessness and see himself on a hell-bent mission from God. Because that's also funny. That's like the prison you fall into, right? From being that, am I really the centre of the universe? Is that when the world hits you in the face, it turns out, yeah, you are, but you're also not. Might sound like a funny thing to say, but the fall from being able to see from that high is profound. And then what happens then is you come to realise that, oh fuck, I've played God. And now God's punishing me. And that's, in essence, where I think faith, big faith, powerful truth faith, that's where it comes from. From the Lord's judgment and punishment for playing God. So in my mind, that there's no one beyond redemption because of that. Because God will punish while you're alive. Drive you crazy, punish you. Take everything from you until you learn gratitude. It's available to all, and it's like those that get sort of chosen, you get chosen for not being dead, for not having given up, for having stopped whatever you were doing. And often when people are like smackheads, they stop whatever they're doing when they've run out of money and they can't borrow or steal anymore, and then they're kind of forced into it. So Brand's someone who's had a few of these wake-up call meetings with Leviathan and come back again and come back again. So it's like it would be wrong to say the man is now a narcissist. It's like he's a post-narcissist. He's even a post-cult leader. When you say kind of a Jim Jones figure, it's like, no, he's beyond that. It's like he's had access to experience and also, other people, teachings that make it so you can transcend the basic pimp cult leader and become something altogether different and new. So it's like, Brand is a progressive mystic, a very good one. And if you were to ask him what he was by way of spiritual, he'd say, oh, I'm very spiritual, but he ain't no Christian. Although I think he's like a freelancer. He's freer than I am to do what he does. Powerful, good, a good one. And he's up there with Scott Adams. Scott Adams is fantastic in that he hasn't got hardly any of the answers, but he asks the best questions. Scott Adams is like, yeah, man. And you know what you're doing. You're engaging the imaginations of the audience. You're asking brilliant questions all the time. So he's blowing people's minds by asking great questions as opposed to telling them amazing truths. So it's like Scott Adams is again another one he said, I'm a trained hypnotist. That's a way of saying I'm a witch or a wizard without saying something that freaks people out. And you'd take his word for it that he was a trained hypnotist, wouldn't you? I'm not a trained hypnotist, by the way. But I know a lot about hypnotism. I'm just not a trained hypnotist. I know that everyone in the world is hypnotizable, and the nature of our experience means that everything in the world is hypnotic because of the way we have to engage it with our imaginations. So it's like the trick is to know there are some people more hypnotizable than others. So you put your word out, and the ones that are more hypnotizable than others, they relate to it and they come find you. You can hypnotize the hypnotizable, but then there's so many of these people, and there's so many people who are in competition to take their money or their attention that it's anyone who can do what I do in a YouTube video is in some way putting out a product that is hypnotic. Now I know it as that, but I'm a trained hypnotist. Know a lot about hypnosis though, don't I? So of effective players, and I mean effective because I talk about a lot of folk being on this, in this war, because that's what it is, who were just ineffectual, not good, ineffectual. It's like they're taking up space. Russell Brand is not taking up space. He's effective. Scott Adams, he's not taking up space. He's effective. James Lindsay's up here and getting higher, but not bringing anyone along with him. So who would his best allies be at this time? Well, there'd be Russell Brand and Scott Adams, of course, who could question him, and then Mr. Brand be someone who has all the answers that James doesn't have. So it's like, in some regards, in this etheric, esoteric, I'm part of that community. Although I'm against it, I was of it for so long that I know these people. I know that mind. It's like part of what I've been doing over the years is like, right, I get to talking and it's like I've got some like authority in how I speak. It's like I command, right? And I'm nobody, but I can do the command. I can talk the talk. I'm nobody, but I can talk the talk. And I can think about the world in certain ways that are dangerous. Dangerous ideas. For him to seize ideas so good in principle that you think, we should do that and, fuck the repercussions. So I'm like someone who's like, beware, boys and girls, that people like me aren't your rulers. It turns out they are, and that's why you got a problem. You want to keep me out of power the best you can, but so many people like me have already slipped past you where they have big ideas and would like to be seen as heroes. They're all on a little secret mission to save the world. They're all asking the questions of, if only I did something, I could save. You're thinking you can save a person. You're thinking you can save a country, a world. You can't. It can only save itself. The most you can do as someone who's trying to be a mystic like Brand, trying to be a hypnotist like Adams, most you can do is give people a choice. And then you freed them. They're no longer going to just fall into a pattern of behaviour. The next time they do the same thing again, or make the same step again, or think the same thing again, next time they might choose not to believe it. They might choose to do something different. I said, no, I won't have a drink tonight. And hate the fact they've stayed in, but they didn't have a drink tonight and they paid a price for it and they learned something about it like that. Giving people a choice is all you can actually do for them. So if you think you can save the world, you're already a fool because you're overstepping the limits of your power when the best you can do is give someone a choice. So there's no saving the world. The really wise know there's no saving the world. But you can't give that wisdom to someone who's hell-bent to save the world. You can't. It's like, well, what would I be if I wasn't a wizard hell-bent to save the world? So you'd be something a lot more useful. You just don't see it. So part of me thinks that Brand is in that post-mystic phase. Now, I exchange words with a few people online who are in that, the high end of that narcissistic spectrum, and put it to them as to where it's like, if you could stop being so afraid and stop being so just easy to manipulate, you'd be amazing people. You guys would be like the most productive and wisest people in the world if you could just drop this idea of being able to save the world. Well, then again, it's, well, what would I be if I wasn't saving the world? My life would have been wasted. So, well, if you were saving the world, you failed. If you shouldn't have stayed a bit, you've done nothing. Yeah, but there's time yet, and it's like, yeah. And communism's never been tried. Tomorrow's always another day. So these high-minded fantasists have to stop being high-minded fantasists. Now, to my mind, Brand has stopped being a high-minded fantasist. Become a pragmatist. But he had to be a high-minded fantasist, idealist, in order to see the folly of it, to become the pragmatic, wise man. So it's like, okay, so Russell's a very talented player. Extremely. Hasn't always been though, has he? No, he's been on a progression that's probably took 20 years. A progression. Whereas if you jumped into it, bloody 10 years ago, he's talking about, he's got Graham fucking Hancock on, who to my mind is like a CIA shill, you know, an agent to drag people off into the unprovable. He sat there talking about ancient aliens and ghosts and spirits and bullshit with fucking Graham Hancock. He's someone who's fucked with Joe Rogan's head as well, hasn't he? Talking about the great unprovables of ancient aliens and all that sort of crap. So it's like, Brand's been down every rabbit hole and found nothing at the bottom, and said, right, okay, that's bullshit, right, what else have I been lied to about? He's gone to, he's studied every single conspiracy theory, every single rabbit hole. He's been down every single rabbit hole, Russell Brand. And more holes besides. So it's like, I don't think he needs, for me to say, oh, we need to come out and protect. No, it'd be insulting too. It's like he's like a high magician. He should be able to fucking get himself out of the shit if there's going to be a war on words. It's his turf. So him getting out in front and saying very serious and using his verbose and clear language to paint the picture of a serious situation deliberately sets it up. Right. Okay, so Brand, I don't need to go through a rundown of his ins and outs of his career, but he's been around, he's the same age as me. I'm about 6 months older than him or something like that. And he hasn't been around that long. He's probably only been around 20 years as a celebrity of a type. Funny Facebook friend of mine when I was a fucking, myself, a do-gooding, hippie, fucking mystical shaman type person who made a lot of assumptions, but had a decent use of the language for a working class version of the fucking monster. Like, he's been down the rabbit holes. He's been down the same rabbit holes as I have. Right, well, on the way up, there is a tale that could be told of Mr. Brand that would be the ripping narrative of the times, and it be, yes, he hasn't broken any laws, or maybe he has, but I reckon you're going to get a tale of the period when he was, he'd lied his way into the company of good people, and I think he's defiled a few farmers' daughters. The amount of trouble he got himself in for that Sachs gate, right, was... I listened to it when it was on the radio. I actually thought it was one of the funniest things I'd ever heard broadcast when I heard it live on the radio. That was the best radio I'd ever heard, by way of it just being giddy, silly, improvised comedy. And then the genius of, oh, well, we'd better do it again. It was so funny last time, let's do it again. But this time we'll say it's something different. This time we'll call it an apology. This time, and it was so surreal and so funny that it was the best thing the BBC had ever put out. But they alluded to sexual relations between Andrew Sachs and his daughter, and it's a matter of Andrew Sachs is not fucking Manuel from Fawlty Towers. That's just what you know him for. It's like this guy's establishment, he's old money, he's old family, he's well connected, he's these fucking oiks. How dare these up-jumped cockney twats, or they wouldn't have said twats, wretched cockneys, how dare they assuage the honour of me and my daughter? So where his daughter's likely some party girl in London who's going out of her way to rub shoulders with the next new bit of dick, the next new bit of council rough that comes through the TV studio and suddenly arrives and thinks they're influential when they're not, because they've just been given a job on television. If they didn't have a job on television, no one would know who they were. They don't know what side their bread's buttered, these celebrity types. So it's like these guys know this. This old Mayfair set types, they fucking know this. It's like, we can put you back where you came from. Because without us, you don't have a voice, and you think your voice is worth something. So we control your voice. You're not actually influential or free or powerful. You work for us. And that's because we made you. There is no you without us, and we can just say bye-bye. How many times has that happened to people in the showbiz era? The internet makes it so it's a little bit of a safer place for those who don't know what side the bread's buttered. There are places one can hide, although if you're Charles C. Johnson, there's nowhere you can hide. He's gone, isn't he? People like that, just gone. There are ways and means, but there were real ways and means in 2013, because you know when they came after him for Saxgate, him and Jonathan Ross, he ruined both of their careers were ruined by it. Both of their careers at the BBC and their reputations amongst the British press, the media, gone. But I thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever heard on the radio, and I don't know if you'd have to be like looking for trouble if you couldn't laugh at that. And he managed to upset all the wrong people to upset. So who did he upset? Fucking toffs who write for The Guardian. The journalists. He upset the journalists. He upset the television presenters. Who were their bosses? Same as his bosses. Same bosses as his. How dare you come out against the landed gentry and their friends? How dare you? They know what side their bread's buttered. At a certain stage of the game, someone's had that conversation I just alluded to with them, as to say, if it wasn't for us, you'd have nothing. See, Terry Christian fucking mouthing off on Twitter all things woke. He's a Manchester just wastrel junkie. They put him on television. And now he thinks he's got a voice and he's got influence. No, he hasn't. He's someone who lives in fear of the day when they fucking bring the hammer down on him. Does as he's told, says what he's supposed to. He's about as effective as Cheggers, and Cheggers is dead. So it's like Russell's still got that hanging over him. And then it's like, and it is, only he could tell you this is true. Although this might be the story. If there's a story to tell about Russell Brand, it would be that he has little fingered his way up the social ladder. in essence, fucked his way to the top. Yes. That Russell has fucked his way to the top. And it's like, how does the dysfunctional son of a single mother, heroin addict, sometime writer, artisty, university educated, but poor, uncouth, how does he find his way to like living with Jemima Goldsmith for years? I had to go and look up who he was married to not long since, who his partner was, because is he still with Jemima? Jemima Goldsmith, daughter of James Goldsmith, the late James Goldsmith, former ex-wife of Imran Khan, the former Pakistan cricket captain and now, in exile, sacked Prime Minister of Pakistan. So that's a weird, you going out with his ex-wife. Isn't that, you've made your way to the top. It's like Imran Khan, not a street boy from Karachi or anything like that. He's like well-to-do northern Pakistani, like super elite. They have their own version of the landed gentry, you see, and he's one of them. Never think low of someone who's highly risen, who's from India or from Pakistan. It's like amongst them, they do have their own elite set, and they're every bit as powerful and vapid as ours. In their own part of the world, even more so. So it's like she's a bit older than Russell. She'd be about 2 years older than him or something like that. He'd be about 48, same age as me. Jemima Goldsmith would be about 50. They'll have been together for 10 years. Now, if you're in with Jemima Goldsmith, you're living with Jemima Goldsmith, she is your partner. You never have to worry about money again, would you? Daughter of a late billionaire. That would put Russell Brand on family get-togethers and functions 2 seats away from Zach Goldsmith, former candidate for the mayor to be mayor of London. He'd be a big reason as to why you've ended up with Boris Johnson. He'd be a big reason as to why you've ended up with Sadiq Khan as mayor of London. Why is that then? Well, he's the wokest of the wokest of the woke and the greenest of the greenest of the greenies. He is now a billionaire green activist, politician, Conservative Party. His father, before him, strangely, he had a political party called, and I quote, the Referendum Party, because that's how he used to speak. His father, James Goldsmith, the Referendum Party. Go and find out about who they are or were. He was a proto Farage. If you go digging down into Mr. Farage, I bet you find James Goldsmith and the Goldsmith family as to who funded his endeavours. Who created him with their money? James Goldsmith ran a candidate in every seat at the 1997 general election that was won in a landslide by smiley Tony Blair, and was able to use Brexit back then as a wedge to break up the Conservative vote. Go and find out who James Goldsmith was. And it's like, so he was anti-Europe. It's like, no, he was anti-conservatives, Conservative Party. He wanted the Conservatives of the time out of power to teach them a lesson. It's like he had his, he was a hostile takeover tycoon. And it's like, they didn't need him anymore. The banks, in the end, and the pension funds just got together and just stole his job, stole his grift. So he was legislated out of existence. He was no longer needed as this hostile takeover bad guy frontman who used to put lots and lots of people out of work. They didn't need him anymore, and he didn't feel like he was as powerful as he once was, never recognising that he was only a creature of the banks and the big investors. He was their attack dog. He used them to make lots of money out of, in essence, the breakup of the colonies and the like. Like, these are serious people with serious money and serious big connections as well. The old Mayfair set. It's like Russell Brand fucked his way into the halls of power, real power. Real power, not government, not screwing an MP, not being best mates with the Prime Minister, no. They get elected and they disappear. The old money, the old property, the old reputations, the old history, they never go away. Russell Brand is someone who's had his dick in the daughters of the rich, the famous and the powerful. And there's bad blood for him. When I got up today and I looked at the old internet and it was all Russell Brand, I'm like, oh, they finally come for him with what they've got. He's now officially upset the wrong people. They're willing to throw down on him. Now, Brand, right, is a kind of dangerous magician. You've got to be feeling real bold to throw down against him. Just saying. You've got to be feeling pretty bold and pretty powerful to throw down against him. The only way they throw down against him is if they've got the goods on him. Right? The goods they've got, from my external outside looking in, knowing the backgrounds of some of these people as to where there's part of me who's a working class lad who says, how do you find yourself at the same dinner table as billionaires? Old money in the nicest parts of London. How does that just happen? Maybe you were designed to be a Pied Piper figure for the working classes and the young. Maybe that's what you were designed to do, and you've now exceeded your programming by so much, learned so much that you're now a lot smarter than they are and they're frightened of you. Because in the first instance, you were the puppet and then you became the fucking master. So if they're coming at you with something real. If I was to speculate on what it was, it would be that he's siphoned wealth off other people, that he's embezzled and lived on. He's basically what they would call a ponce. That's a charmer and chancer who lives off other people. We will hear tale of women he's taken money from, and it would be a matter of taken money from, or they've spent this money on him and he's walked away. That's the story they'll have to tell. And the reason why it would be a story that matters would be the old names and renown of the good and gentle aristocracy he's shaken down for money. That's the only story they've got that could bring him down. In this day and age, you couldn't damage a man's... You couldn't damage... You see, the rules that once upon a time you could bring him down as a serial philanderer, but times have changed. Now that's seen as being Chad, one of the guys. Well, it's bullshit, but that's the way that if you're going to have an extreme, broken, hyper emotional, confused gender identity movement, you have to have that movement must have its creators. There must be an equal and opposite movement, and the equal and opposite movement is the, hey guy, did you fuck her? The Chad. So you split something along those lines now of the Chads versus the fucking freaks. To enough people in the court of public opinion, Russell Brand would be seen as having committed no crime, committed no foul. So it's like to come at him with a blunt weapon. Not a blunt instrument, a blunt weapon. To come at him with a dull sword. So that's not what they're coming at him with, is it? That's not what they're going to bring. And if they were to do that, if it was just to be a matter of we're gonna traipse out all these well-to-do young women who've been used and discarded by Russell Brand, that'd not be enough. Even if their names are Lady Jane and Lady Sarah or things like that, if they're well-to-do aristocracy, it's not enough. It might have been enough 10 years ago, but it's not enough now. So they must have something proper. Because to come out after him to say, look at all these fine women he's fucked, would backfire. People would be like, go on, Russell. Good lad, Russell. Wow, Russell. You've seen some women, haven't you? Go and have a look at that clip from years ago when he was married to Katy Perry. And they're turning up at an award show. Microphone in Katy Perry's face, camera in her face, heading for her, wanting to get some kind of comment from her. And Russell Brand pulls from out of his pocket a key ring and shows it her. And then she goes talking to the press. The key ring said, obey. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying that actually, there's a way of looking at it to make that seem bad. Like, she's a mind control victim. But like, no, she's a fucking lunatic. And there are men in the world who have a way with dangerous, dangerous, crazy women. And he's one of them. He's got a way with them that from the outside looking in might seem as he's controlling her, he's giving her commands. It's like, yeah, without commands, she's useless. Without someone to actually be a manager and a caregiver, she's useless. So it's like, there's been a time where Russell Brand has been the top shag in the world, but then found himself actually doing the job as the king of the simps with all of them. The king of the simps. Oh, poor you. Oh, right, he's so down. Oh, poor you. It's like, you can't tell me he is an experienced man who hasn't lived the whole realm of the underworld, has lived in a world of make-believe insanity and desperation and want, and it be a matter of he's kind of moved past it by the looks of it, but hasn't forgotten. That makes him experienced and wise. He's a perfectly good target, a perfectly selected target, and those who are coming after him will have the goods on him. Because an attack on him that just bounces off would be a disaster and like an own goal. And that set doesn't score own goals. They're the kind of people who know what the score of the game's going to be before it kicks off.